You're watching Fraser Focus. We are back with our Author's Corner segment. This week we're featuring a Chilliwack writer. Let's head into the Bookman and see what kind of content and stories come from this community. Introducing local talented author Abrianna. She wrote a fantasy book. Tell me about this book.
My first book is Akairya, first half The Fractured Soul. And then book 2, Akairya, is being released this October, and this is the cover for it. It's just the introduction to this world and this character who means a lot to me. It's about self-discovery, elemental power, emotion, and finding herself in a world that's torn apart by a thing called the Blight. And that's my play on kind of the concept of global warming, but in a fantasy setting, and finding yourself as a woman in a world that doesn't know how to take you. If you were to compare it to a movie out there, fantasy-wise, there's so many, what would it be? Well, in a perfect world, I would love for it to be like Lord of the Rings, anything like Game of Thrones is not as dark as Game of Thrones, but the angles and the fantasy and the outfits and the beautiful direction, all that kind of fun stuff. But for like story-wise, I'd say Lord of the Rings.
Must fight. I will not risk open war.
Open war is upon you, whether you would risk it or not.
A new power is rising.
So the characters, the main character, for example, what are they like?
Akairya is a lost soul. She was orphaned at a young age. She's a half-breed, she's half-elf, so she's not used to being welcomed by society. So when she's thrust out into this world after her city is destroyed by this blight and the creatures that have spawned from it, she doesn't know what's next. And she comes across a dragonling, which is very rare. That's not how this world works. And meets this dragon, and things put her on this path that is kind of like save the world, save herself, and find who she is.
What inspired you to write this book? I mean, people need to go to a lot of places. You must have a very vivid imagination to create something like this.
Yeah, I've always had a very high imagination, constantly. Like Harry Potter was my world in grade 3, and Lord of the Rings, I was reading that grade 6, and I've always wanted to be a part of that, like write my own and just dig into the roots of something.
I like your take on going to a world. Mine was actually more of an escape. When I was younger, was the time travel. So you're going to a world, but it's in a different time. So it's one of those books that takes you on an escape vacation.
For sure, and it's a medieval kind of fantasy, so there's no technology of that kind, like no electricity or anything like that. It's all armor, swords, bows and arrows, and magic.
When you wrote this book, you're from the local area, from Chilliwack. Where did you spend your time writing?
Funny story, I actually took a semester abroad in Ireland, and that's where I completed Akairya, and just seeing, the landscape of the Irish hills, and I can't even describe it. As a writer, I can't even describe how beautiful Ireland was, and I finished my book there, started the second one, and of course the mountains here, just the rugged landscapes of BC has a huge part in it as well. Tons of talented writers out here, but sometimes they never quite get that book out there. What's your advice? My number one advice that helped me as well as I was developing Akairya was write every day. Even if it's just 500 words a day, like just get it out. Doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad, just get it out. You can edit later, just make that habit. That's some good advice. This is Author's Corner with Abrianna. I'm Leah Bolton, and you're watching a Fraser Focus. Stay with us.